To exact revenge on 6 bullies from elementary school, the perpetrator laid a sinister curse early on. He deliberately blacked out their portraits in the graduation yearbook, allowing it to ferment in the soil for 23 years. In 2025, this deadly yearbook emerged, and a meticulously planned revenge began. The order of murders followed a chilling nursery rhyme, with each victim's death gruesomely mirroring their unfinished childhood dreams. The first target of the killer's revenge was Takagi, who had always dreamed of flying. Tragically, he fell to his death instead. The story begins 23 years earlier with a case of school bullying. When Saruhashi, a new transfer student, joined the 6th grade, one day her pencil case was thrown into the equipment storage. While searching alone, the iron door slammed shut and was quickly locked from the outside. Panicked, she desperately shook the door and screamed for help. Takagi, coming to retrieve a ball, heard her cries. Soon, 5 other classmates arrived. But upon realizing Saruhashi was trapped inside, not only did they not open the door, the ringleader Takagi started playing a cruel prank. The group joined in, banging and shouting at the steel door, terrifying Saruhashi until she collapsed, kneeling on the floor, covering her ears to block out the noise. The bullying continued relentlessly until graduation. To commemorate their elementary school days, each student drew their dream and placed it in an iron box, burying it deep in the ground. They agreed to unearth this time capsule in 2025 during the school's 50th anniversary. While all classmates celebrated joyously, only Saruhashi stood alone in the crowd, her eyes reflecting mixed emotions. Fast forward to 2025, Takagi, now settled with a family, received an invitation to the 50th anniversary celebration of their school. Takagi, who also received the invitation, came to visit him. Afterward, the two headed to their alma mater to unearth the time capsule. Once all the available classmates had gathered, they followed the class president with tools to the original burial site. During the excavation, Saruhashi, now a well-known journalist who had been bullied in the past, appeared quietly and immediately attracted attention from everyone except Takagi, who looked skeptical. Together, Takagi and the classmates unearthed the time capsule that had been buried for 23 years. Despite the rust on the iron box, the childhood dreams inside were still vivid. Everyone found their drawing, bringing back a flood of memories. However, while flipping through the graduation album, they discovered a disturbing scene. 6 faces had been blacked out, those of the children who had bullied Saruhashi. Faced with this eerie coincidence, Takagi couldn't help but look at Saruhashi, wondering if this was her revenge. Later, the group went to a pub for a meal. Since some people couldn't attend today, Takagi was entrusted with the remaining drawings. During a break, Takagi noticed the usually quiet class president smoking. She casually explained that people change over the years, and much had changed since then. During the conversation, she noticed Takagi's wedding ring, her expression turning complex. Meanwhile, driven by curiosity, Takagi sneakily took out Saruhashi's drawing while she went to the restroom. To everyone's surprise, the drawing depicted a little girl surrounded by oppressive black strokes. The class president quickly intervened, placing the drawing back and urging everyone to keep quiet about it. Strangely, after the gathering, everyone took the elevator downstairs, but Saruhashi insisted on walking down the stairs alone. After everyone had left, Takagi, Takagi, and Sakurai continued their revelry at a small pub. Meanwhile, Saruhashi stood alone on an overpass, clutching her childhood dream, drawing and recalling scenes of being bullied. Not just her, but each classmate, upon seeing their past dreams, experienced a mix of emotions. Some dreams fulfilled, others shattered. After a satisfying meal, Takagi, Takagi, and Sakurai decided to head home. As Takagi searched for his keys at his doorstep, a mysterious figure suddenly approached and, catching him off guard, strangled him and pushed him off the building. Takagi, who once dreamt of flying, met a cruel fate plummeting to the ground. The next day, the police contacted Takagi to inquire about the incident. Learning of Takagi's fatal fall, Takagi was in disbelief and pressed the police, asking if it was murder. His suspicion arose because he immediately thought of the blackened faces in the graduation album, and Takagi was one of the 6 bullies. His initial suspicion was that Saruhashi might be seeking revenge. At the same time, upon hearing of Takagi's death, Saruhashi volunteered to cover the story herself, but was rejected by her editor since she was a star reporter for the magazine, and the case was considered too trivial for her. However, Saruhashi's intuition told her that Takeda's death was linked to the blackened yearbook. Meanwhile, a troubled Takagi met with Sakurai and voiced his suspicions, but Sakurai dismissed the idea of foul play, noting even the police believed it was likely an accident. Takagi, however, was not convinced, suspecting a connection to the defaced yearbook since all 6 were once bullies. During their conversation, Saruhashi unexpectedly arrived to gather material for a report on Takeda's death. She overheard Takagi's suspicions just in time.
あなた先ほど私のことをどの子と呼びましたよね。つまり覚えてるんですね。私をいじめたことを。
Sakurai tried to smooth things over, stating that it had been so long and he had forgotten the past incidents. However, Saruhashi, who had been bullied, did not feel the same way. The effects of their actions on her lasted a lifetime, including her claustrophobia. Facing Saruhashi's repressed anger, Takagi finally couldn't help but ask if she had killed him. Saruhashi did not respond to Takagi's baseless accusation and left after dropping 2 business cards. Takagi, looking at the cards on the table, felt a mix of emotions. The next day, he took the initiative to find Saruhashi, first apologizing for bullying her years ago, then directly urged her not to seek revenge in this manner. He told her if she wanted revenge, to target him directly and not to harm others. Although Saruhashi was somewhat touched, she chose not to explain herself. Just as she was about to leave, a fire suddenly broke out across the street at Sakurai's restaurant. The two incredulously ran over, only to find the restaurant engulfed in flames, with Sakurai unconscious. In a moment of desperation, Saruhashi, disregarding her own safety, covered her mouth and nose and rushed into the building. Unbeknownst to her, the restaurant was stocked with many gas cylinders. Just as she reached the door, a spark ignited the gas, causing an explosion that temporarily deafened her. As the fire door closed, the dark, confined space triggered her claustrophobia. Despite her efforts to regulate her breathing, memories of being bullied overwhelmed her. Just in time, Takagi appeared and, with the help of firefighters, managed to rescue a limp Saruhashi. Sakurai's fate was similar to Takeda's. He had once dreamed of becoming a firefighter, but now nearly perished in a fire. Although he survived, he fell into a deep coma. Since Saruhashi had risked entering the burning building and was with Takagi during the fire, she had an alibi, so Takagi immediately dismissed her as a suspect. Saruhashi explained that her interest in these cases stemmed not only from her hatred of bullies, but also from her disdain for someone using her past as a bullied individual to commit murders. Consequently, Saruhashi planned to team up with Takagi to uncover the truth behind these murders and prevent more deaths. Takagi, whose childhood dream was to be a hero who eradicates evil, solemnly agreed to her request. This commitment was partly influenced by a childhood incident where a selfish girl demanded that her friend not use a toy dog identical to one on her own backpack. Not only did she forbid it, but she also stealthily stole the friend's charm and hid it in her desk. When the friend discovered the theft and confronted her, the girl denied everything. However, the friend found the charm in her drawer and presented it as evidence. Prepared for this, the girl had already marked the toy dog with her unique, smiley face sticker. With clear evidence, a meddlesome boy and other classmates forced the friend, isolated and unsupported, to apologize to the girl. The triumphant girl chose to discard rather than return the charm. More cruelly, from that day on, she and her classmates began a prolonged campaign of bullying against the friend. This bullied girl was Saruhashi. The selfish girl was one of the 6 whose faces were blacked out in the graduation album, Nakajima Emi. 2 of the 6 bullies have already been punished. Next is Nakajima Emi. Due to a series of mysterious deaths among those blacked out in the graduation album, former bully Takagi and victim Saruhashi are forced to collaborate to uncover the truth. They analyze the 6 blacked out individuals, trying to find commonalities. Takagi recalls that they all bullied Saruhashi, but Saruhashi's keen insight reveals more. The deaths of Takeda and Sakurai eerily correspond to their childhood dreams. If this is a planned crime, the perpetrator is likely a classmate. To better understand the situation, Saruhashi spends days without sleep, compiling information on all classmates, yet fails to identify any suspects. While she is deep in analysis, Takagi interrupts, suggesting they urgently warn the remaining 3 to prevent further tragedies. Since Koyama Takahiro and Hada Taiho are not local, they decide to first approach Nakajima Emi. Soon after, Saruhashi receives a message from Takagi. He has contacted Nakajima Emi and arranged to meet her that evening. Currently, Nakajima Emi works in PR at her boyfriend's nightclub, appearing glamorous on the surface but essentially bartering her body for what she desires. Upon learning about Takeda and Sakurai's accidents, she feels a mix of emotions. That night, Takagi and Saruhashi hurry to the nightclub. Upon seeing the stage spotlight, they tense up. Nakajima Emi's dream was to become an idol. Could she die under the spotlight? As they ponder this, Nakajima Emi approaches. Seeing her long unseen frenemy, Saruhashi's anger is palpable. Nakajima Emi starts boasting immediately, which Saruhashi can barely tolerate and thinks about moving away. However, Nakajima Emi notices Saruhashi's bag and quickly comments that she has an identical one. This remark instantly took Saruhashi back to her elementary school days when she was falsely accused and bullied over a bag charm identical to hers. Even if Nakajima Emi apologized now, Saruhashi could not forgive her. Angered, Saruhashi stood up and scolded her, stating their bags were not the same at all. Her bag was earned with her own hands, while Emi's was obtained by selling her body. After Saruhashi left, Nakajima Emi went to a small pub with Takagi. During this time, Takagi kept reminding her to be careful, but Nakajima Emi, unconcerned, continued singing. After having fun, her boyfriend came to pick her up. Just as they left, a paparazzi hiding in the shadows appeared, and Takagi caught him. Confronted by Takagi, the man hastily explained he was just taking photos for fun and fled. When Takagi found a business card the man dropped, he realized the man was Saruhashi's colleague. Takagi, suspecting Saruhashi of spying on Nakajima Emi for revenge, he was shocked to learn from Saruhashi that Nakajima Emi's boyfriend was suspected of dealing in illegal drugs and that her colleague was tracking him to gather evidence. Nakajima Emi had always dreamed of being on stage singing and dancing. While she reminisced about the past and dreamed of the future, her boyfriend brought her good news. A dancer could not make it to the next day's event, and Emi could fill in. Although not the lead, she was thrilled. During the conversation, her boyfriend carelessly showed her the illegal drugs. While Nakajima Emi was practicing her dance, Takagi found her again and revealed her boyfriend's drug dealing. Unexpectedly, she showed no surprise, claiming she didn't care about these things as long as she was getting money. Before leaving, Takagi once again warned her to be cautious of the mysterious killer, but she paid no attention. Meanwhile, Saruhashi's colleague received a tip that a drug deal might happen at the nightclub that night. Saruhashi and her colleagues went there to secretly gather evidence. At the same time, a mysterious person humming a tune visited the hospital where Sakurai was admitted, intending to see him but was turned away by doctors because the patient had not regained consciousness. Back at home, Takagi's doorbell suddenly rang. Seeing no response, he cautiously picked up a small knife from the table and approached the door. Hearing a familiar voice, he relaxed, put down the knife, and opened the door. The visitor was the same person who had just tried to see Sakurai, none other than Koyama Takahiro from the group of 6, who had just returned from the USA to reclaim his childhood dream. He had heard about Takeda and Sakurai, and deeply moved, he hummed a song from their childhood, filled with nostalgia. Before he left, Takagi warned him to be wary of the mysterious killer, but like Nakajima Emi, he didn't believe in such rumors. Just as Saruhashi was returning unsuccessful, she was stopped by Nakajima Emi, who knew Saruhashi was investigating her boyfriend. Whether from a newfound conscience or as an apology for childhood bullying, Nakajima Emi handed over evidence of her boyfriend dealing drugs to Saruhashi. Meanwhile, as Takagi hummed the childhood song, he suddenly realized an important clue. The sequence of the murders by the mysterious killer seemed to follow the lyrics of the song. If true, Nakajima Emi was next. He immediately called Saruhashi to share this clue, urging her to find Nakajima Emi quickly. He would follow soon. On her way, Nakajima Emi walked under a sudden downpour, sensing something unusual. She opened her umbrella, lost in thoughts of her childhood dream, when a mysterious person with a black umbrella quietly approached. Unnoticed, they pushed her into the road. In moments, Nakajima Emi lay in a pool of blood, her childhood dream blurring under the relentless rain. Koyama Takahiro felt a mix of emotions after reading the report. Meanwhile, Takagi and Saruhashi arrived at the car accident site to mourn Nakajima Emi. The two were deeply suspicious when they learned the police had hastily dismissed the case as an accident again. Now, they could only rely on themselves to uncover the truth, piece by piece. Saruhashi suspected Koyama Takahiro, who had suddenly returned to the country, but Takagi opposed the idea. According to the nursery rhyme order, Koyama Takahiro should be the next target of the killer. Besides, the fatal song was composed by Koyama Takahiro. Yet, Saruhashi still did not rule out his suspicion and reminded Takagi to stay in touch with him. She would investigate him in her own way. Meanwhile, Koyama Takahiro, who was in a meeting, suddenly recalled a message from an unknown sender before he returned to the country, a photo of Takeda's gruesome death. A foreboding sense surged in him. He tried to reply but received no response. The next day, following Saruhashi's advice, Takagi actively invited Koyama Takahiro to eat steak. Halfway through the meal, Koyama Takahiro shared his theory on the three murders. He believed the prime suspect was Saruhashi, as all six of them had bullied her in the past, making her motive plausible. Before he finished, Takagi immediately refuted him, claiming Saruhashi was with him when Sakurai died, leaving her no time to commit the crime. But Koyama Takahiro did not believe him, thinking Takagi was being misled. Despite Koyama Takahiro's reasoning, Takagi remained convinced Saruhashi would not seek revenge. Seeing no common ground, Koyama Takahiro angrily left the table, leaving Takagi to worryingly remind him to be careful. Although the police had closed all three cases as accidents, two officers disagreed and secretly investigated everyone connected to the cases. That night, Takagi went to a small bar alone, hoping to drown his sorrows, but alcohol only made him recall 23 years ago. Back then, he and Koyama Takahiro were inseparable best friends. Koyama Takahiro was not only intelligent but also a rich kid, always the center of attention in class. One day, when Takagi invited him to play video games, he was rejected on the spot. Watching Koyama Takahiro walk away, Takagi felt a deep sense of loss. From then on, Koyama Takahiro often declined Takagi's invitations, citing studies as his priority. For his ingratitude, Takagi's anger surged. He grabbed Koyama Takahiro by the collar, only to be roughly pushed away. Unwilling to back down, he flipped Koyama Takahiro's books over in front of the entire class. Takagi charged at him again. Blinded by rage, Takagi blurted out, "We're done." Hearing this, Koyama Takahiro kicked over his desk and stormed out of the classroom without looking back. The two parted ways from that day on. Despite 23 years passing, Takagi still couldn't let go. One day, with Saruhashi's self-recommendation, her boss agreed to let her interview Koyama Takahiro. The moment they met, tension was palpable. As the recorder clicked on, Saruhashi directly asked why he had returned at this critical moment. Koyama Takahiro admitted he had come back for the new product launch. Seeing she wasn't getting anywhere, Saruhashi turned off the recorder. Koyama Takahiro then showed her a photo sent by an unknown sender. This angle could only be captured by the killer, he said, convinced the killer was trying to lure him back to kill him. The only one with a motive, he claimed, was Saruhashi. Faced with his baseless accusation, Saruhashi responded with a cold laugh. Though he had bullied her in elementary school, she had never thought of killing anyone, she said, because she was different from bad kids like them who took pleasure in others' misfortune. Her heartfelt words made Koyama Takahiro drop his suspicions and apologize. Saruhashi then advised him to cancel the launch to prevent the killer from striking, but Koyama Takahiro refused, as the event was closely tied to Takagi. At the same time, Takagi, who was working, suddenly received a call from the police. Sakurai had miraculously woken up. He immediately rushed to the hospital. Facing his friend's awakening, Takagi was overjoyed. Sakurai weakly explained that on the day of the incident, he had fallen asleep while preparing ingredients in the store for no apparent reason. In any case, it was a blessing to be alive. During their conversation, Takagi noticed a space crystal ball on the nightstand. Sakurai told him that Koyama Takahiro had brought it during his visit a few days prior. Not long after Takeda's death, Koyama Takahiro had called Sakurai. Upon learning about the class reunion, he immediately returned home. He had repeatedly urged Sakurai to keep an eye on Takagi and stop him from doing anything dangerous. But when he returned, Sakurai was already on the verge of death. Hearing this, Takagi was deeply moved. Sakurai also revealed that Koyama Takahiro had always regretted their falling out. At the time, he didn't want to go to cram school, but he had made a promise with Takagi. Koyama Takahiro's dream was to become an astronaut. While other classmates laughed at him for daydreaming, only Takagi stood up for him. Thanks to his support, Koyama Takahiro gained immense confidence and vowed to take Takagi to space with him one day. This was the real reason he went to cram school and studied so hard. Learning the truth left Takagi overwhelmed with emotions. As he left the hospital, he saw a plane flying overhead, ascending into the sky, as if symbolizing Koyama Takahiro's unfulfilled childhood dream. Just as he was lost in thought, Saruhashi called. Koyama Takahiro's new product launch today was space-related, which aligned with his dream of becoming an astronaut. The killer would most likely strike during this time. Takagi hurriedly made his way there. By then, the launch venue was already packed. Amid deafening cheers, Koyama Takahiro made a dazzling entrance. At that moment, Takagi arrived. He and Saruhashi positioned themselves on opposite sides of the venue, keeping a close watch on any suspicious individuals. He didn't let go of anyone who looked even slightly shifty. On stage, Koyama Takahiro introduced the software that would allow users to explore space, saying it was not only his childhood dream, but also a promise to his best friend, Takagi. Under Koyama Takahiro's passionate speech, the launch was a resounding success. Astrovel Takagi had just let out a breath of relief when he realized there was a media interview session outside, immediately heightening his alertness. He instinctively looked around and, seeing nothing suspicious, stood aside to watch Koyama Takahiro's interview. Suddenly, a shard of glass fell on his shoulder. Puzzled, Takagi followed the trajectory and looked up in horror to see a large piece of glass being pushed out. At the last moment, Takagi rushed toward Koyama Takahiro, saving him from being crushed by the glass. After this ordeal, Koyama Takahiro finally believed Takagi's earlier warnings. However, the police once again dismissed the incident as an accident. The terrifying scene left Takagi shaken. Koyama Takahiro and Takagi finally reconciled, sitting down together for the first time since their falling out to share a drink. The mysterious killer's revenge was not over. The first victim was Takeda, the second was Sakurai, the third was Nakajima Emi, and the fourth was Koyama Takahiro. Only Takagi and Hitachi remained. Saruhashi, combining the lyrics of the nursery rhyme, deduced that the killer's next target would be Hitachi, who dreamed of becoming a noble samurai. Takagi on the other side coincidentally shared the same judgment. Meanwhile, the otaku Hitachi, upon seeing the news of Koyama Takahiro's near-death experience, was not relieved but instead flew into a rage. He roughly threw away his otaku happy drink, which splashed onto his graduation photo. Meanwhile, Takagi and the others deduced the killer's next target might be Hitachi. If so, given the previous victim's fates, Hitachi would likely be assassinated. Their top priority was to find him quickly. Since Hitachi had skipped the last class reunion, the trio pinned their hopes on him. From the class president, they learned that Hitachi's mother had been close to the president's mother. His mother had passed away last year, and his father was long gone, leaving him alone. The president's mother, deeply concerned, had asked her daughter to track down his address. After hanging up, the president's expression turned ominous as she pulled out the graduation album, her eyes filled with murderous intent. Meanwhile, Saruhashi received a message from Takagi in the group chat. The three decided to visit Hitachi's house on Saturday. Noticing Saruhashi's unease, a male co-worker plucked up the courage to comfort her, offering help if needed, filling the air with jealousy. On Saturday, the three quickly found Hitachi's house using a map. After pressing the doorbell and receiving no answer, they were about to leave when they spotted Hitachi on the balcony. Takagi and Koyama Takahiro were overjoyed, but Hitachi, far from welcoming, reacted coldly to his old friends until he saw Saruhashi. He already knew their purpose and let them in. As a typical otaku, his home was slightly messy, but his signature samurai topknot remained unchanged. Saruhashi signaled Takagi to show Hitachi his childhood dream. The moment Hitachi saw it, he stopped what he was doing and approached only to dismiss it carelessly. Before Takagi could speak, Hitachi pulled up news reports of Takeda, Mitsume, and Koyama Takahiro's deaths and pointed a knife at Saruhashi. Just like Koyama Takahiro, Hitachi's first thought was that Saruhashi was seeking revenge for bullying her. Before the three could react, Hitachi put down his blade, cleared the table, and sat down. He took off his socks while mocking himself, saying he was a worthless coward and would willingly die if it made Saruhashi feel better. Koyama Takahiro hurried to explain they were there to protect him. Takagi added that the real killer wasn't Saruhashi. That's why they came to work together to find the killer, since the six of them were once good friends. The moment the words good friends were mentioned, Hitachi sneered. He said only he had fallen behind over the years and no longer deserved to be called their good friend. Then, he abruptly kicked them out. The three were left speechless. As they left, a mysterious figure appeared, having seen everything. Meanwhile, Hitachi vented his anger on trash. When he stepped on his childhood dream, he seemed to hesitate. Later, the three met at a bar, recalling the past. They remembered how Hitachi had silently copied homework for everyone while they played games. Takagi thought this might be why Hitachi resented them, but Koyama Takahiro disagreed. He remembered Hitachi joining them in video games afterward. The next day, Saruhashi sat at her desk, staring at her own blackened childhood dream. A male co-worker asked to see it, but she refused. At the same time, Koyama Takahiro was also lost in thought, staring at his own childhood dream. At that moment, a police officer suddenly came to talk to him. Meanwhile, Takagi received a call from Sakurai, who had recovered well and was now able to move around freely. Sakurai declared that once he was better, he would reopen a more impressive shop. This remark was overheard by their homeroom teacher, who was visiting the hospital. Gazing at Sakurai's back, she wore a thoughtful expression, which soon turned sinister. Not long after, when the nurse came to change the bandages, Sakurai had vanished. A space crystal ball lay shattered on the floor. What left Takagi in disbelief was that he had just been discussing future renovations with Sakurai that very day, only to receive the terrible news that night. In the video, Sakurai was bound, his head covered in a sack, and gasoline was poured over him before a torch was thrown. Instantly, Sakurai was engulfed in flames, his screams piercing the air. Faced with such a horrific scene, Takagi physically vomited. By the time the fire was extinguished, Sakurai's body was charred black, his clothes reduced to tattered shreds clinging to his skin. The police only found a cell phone upon arrival. From Sakurai's death, it was clear the killer would stop at nothing. Koyama Takahiro wanted to discuss countermeasures with Takagi, but the two ended up in a fierce argument over Sakurai's death. Seeing this, Saruhashi decided to go alone to convince Hitachi. At that moment, Hitachi was watching the news of Sakurai's burning death while eating potato chips. When the doorbell rang, he opened the door out of curiosity, only to find Saruhashi. Relieved that she had come alone, he let her in. When Saruhashi caught a glimpse of the news on the computer, she didn't ask a single question. Instead, she tied on an apron and pulled up her hair, startling Hitachi into blurting out, "Saruhashi is really going to kill me, isn't she?" Saruhashi ignored him completely, pulling out the vacuum cleaner she had brought and starting to clean for Hitachi. The sight left Hitachi stunned. As Saruhashi did the dishes, Hitachi picked up her childhood dream from the table. Seeing the edges smeared with oppressive black, he gasped. Back when everyone was drawing their dreams, Saruhashi had the misfortune of drawing the same as Mitsume. Afraid of being bullied, she had secretly darkened the edges of her own dream, when no one was looking. Learning of Saruhashi's past suffering, Hitachi was filled with regret and guilt. He immediately knelt before her, apologizing over and over. It turned out Hitachi had been a gloomy child. To avoid being ostracized, he had actively joined the bullying group of 5. To prove his loyalty, he had even callously torn apart Saruhashi's handmade work. Not only that, but when Takagi and Koyama Takahiro were playing with Saruhashi's school bag and accidentally threw it at his feet, he had initially resisted Takagi's invitation. But remembering that bullying Saruhashi was the only way to fit in, he had thrown the bag into the trash right in front of all 5 of them. His actions had immediately won Takagi's approval. Now, facing Saruhashi again, Hitachi was filled with remorse. Though Saruhashi didn't say a word of forgiveness, her actions spoke volumes. She put on a mask and dumped all the trash she had just bagged up. This method of revenge was enough to prove Saruhashi's kindness. She had said, "If you can't change others, then change yourself." Her magnanimity left Hitachi in awe. As Saruhashi was leaving, Hitachi, now fully enlightened, decided to stand up. He took the initiative to clean his small room with a vacuum cleaner and followed Saruhashi to the bar, where he found Takagi and Koyama Takahiro. As soon as he entered, Hitachi began apologizing. His sudden transformation left the two of them stunned. Before they could fully process it, Hitachi pulled out a Bomberman game disc, a cherished memory. In his recollection, Hitachi had been copying homework for everyone when he saw the other kids playing video games, feeling deeply envious. His longing expression was noticed by Takagi, who then invited him to join. Even though he was terrible at the game, no one ever blamed him. Sakurai generously gave him the disc to take home and practice, a small kindness that still made him happy to this day. Lost in Hitachi's memories, Takagi and Koyama Takahiro were overwhelmed. At the bar owner's suggestion, the three of them relived the experience, enjoying the game and rekindling their hard-won friendship. Meanwhile, Saruhashi's male colleague urgently needed to find her. Upon learning she hadn't returned yet, he was about to leave in disappointment when a female co-worker deliberately stopped him to tease him. She was well aware of his unrequited feelings for Saruhashi. While waiting for the elevator, the angry man accidentally spotted Saruhashi's display board. He immediately walked over and roughly knocked it down. At the same time, at the police station, the officer investigating the case was briefing the chief. Although the first two were ruled accidents, Sakurai's death was clearly murder. The chief immediately concluded it was a serial murder case, and the prime suspect was... Just then, a mysterious figure dragged a mud-covered shovel into the former 6th grade classroom. The third murder finally caught the police's attention. To overturn the conclusions of the first two accidental cases, the chief decided to hand over the yearbook murder case to Kuroi and ordered the two detectives who had been involved from the beginning to follow his lead. Meanwhile, Takagi and the others were staring at a class photo, utterly clueless about the killer's identity. It was then that Hitachi discovered a crucial clue. The teacher knows us too. Takagi immediately called Saruhashi, hoping she could help contact their former homeroom teacher to go together and find out more. Perhaps the teacher remembers things everyone else has forgotten. Saruhashi readily agreed. With the teacher's permission, the four of them returned to their alma mater. For Takagi and the others, the memories were pleasant, but for Saruhashi, they were unbearable. Passing the gym, she saw the equipment storage room and instantly recalled being locked inside. As soon as they reached the classroom door, the teacher came out to greet them. The moment they stepped inside, Saruhashi was hit with a flood of memories of being bullied, being accused by Nakajima Emi of stealing a pendant, being forced by Takagi to apologize, having her bag constantly snatched and teased with by Takagi. Just as they reached the office door, Takagi's daughter was pushed down by a classmate. It felt like karma. He had bullied others, and now the karmic blow had fallen on his own daughter. Takagi went over to comfort his daughter, but in a daze, he mistook the boy for his younger self and was stunned. Upon entering the office, the teacher immediately asked Saruhashi to substitute for the lecturer and teach a Japanese literature class for Class 1, Grade 4 the following week. The observant Koyama Takahiro noticed that the homeroom teacher had been promoted to principal, while the current teacher admitted she was retiring at the end of the year. The group then showed the teacher the yearbook that had been maliciously blacked out. After learning their purpose, the teacher meaningfully told them that in her eyes, they were all good children, and that there had been no bullying in the class that year. Hearing this, Saruhashi could no longer remain seated. She had been bullied, yet the teacher claimed nothing had happened. The teacher's firm expression and tone left Saruhashi utterly disappointed. She directly recounted her past experiences of being bullied. However, the teacher responded with unusual calm, saying she had never noticed. Koyama Takahiro inadvertently caught sight of a secret but said nothing. At this point, Takagi stood up and actively asked the teacher if he had ever done anything unkind to his classmates, even minor things. The teacher smiled slightly upon hearing this and said she didn't remember. After the group left, the teacher immediately stood up to call someone. Just as the phone was about to connect, she caught sight of a photo of herself with her daughter and granddaughter on the desk. She then hung up the phone in alarm. When Takagi and the others returned to the studio, Koyama Takahiro pointed out that the teacher's bookshelf displayed yearbooks from all graduating classes except theirs. This immediately raised suspicions. Koyama Takahiro continued to speculate that the time capsule should have been buried before graduation. So, why was the yearbook inside? The only possibility was that someone had dug it up and placed it back in. Following this line of reasoning, the killer would not have the yearbook with them now. This made the teacher the prime suspect. Just as the four of them were puzzled, the doorbell suddenly rang. To their surprise, the class monitor had come uninvited. Takagi opened the door, and the monitor was shocked to see Hitachi and Koyama Takahiro. The monitor brought snacks to share with everyone, but Saruhashi showed no interest. Noticing this, the monitor gave a knowing look and then said she had heard about the yearbook and wanted to help. She tried to pry information from Hitachi when he was off guard, but Takagi firmly cut her off, saying they weren't telling to avoid dragging her into it. Seeing that the others were tight-lipped, the monitor decided to target Saruhashi and invited her to dinner. The two of them went to a barbecue restaurant. At first, Saruhashi was quite reserved. To ease the awkwardness, the monitor apologized for turning a blind eye back then. This apology gradually opened Saruhashi up. After a few drinks, Saruhashi vented her grievances about the bullies. In the spirit of fairness, the monitor also shared a secret: she had once had a crush on Takagi. Hearing this, Saruhashi looked utterly dismissive. She couldn't believe that someone who had led the bullying had a secret admirer. The monitor also told Saruhashi that before asking her to give the lecture, the teacher had approached her first, but she had declined because she had to work that day. Then, she revealed a little-known detail. The teacher had recorded videos of all the students' childhood dreams. Saruhashi suddenly recalled that this was indeed true. By rights, these videos should have been buried with the time capsule, but they weren't inside. Meanwhile, back at home, Takagi learned from his wife that their daughter had been sulking ever since she was pushed after teasing a classmate. Takagi went to comfort her. He wanted to persuade her to apologize, but she flatly refused. Soon, the day of Saruhashi's lecture arrived. She and Takagi agreed that after the class, they would go to confront the teacher and get to the bottom of things. In the classroom, Saruhashi gave a profound lesson on human nature by combining her own experiences with a fable. Takagi recalled how he and 5 other classmates had bullied Saruhashi and suddenly felt remorse for his actions. He had intended to let her out, but the teacher had beaten him to it. When questioned, Takagi stubbornly denied it, saying, "It wasn't me who locked her in," before running off. Looking back, he realized he shouldn't have run away. Unbeknownst to him, the teacher had already seen his regret. After the lecture, Takagi's daughter raised an objection. She believed the animal in the story that played the prank deserved to die, and asked Takagi for his opinion. As someone who had committed similar misdeeds, he was at a loss for words. After a moment of thought, he could only explain that humans are different from animals, and admitted that one should avoid hurting others. Apologies should be made until they are accepted. Saruhashi was deeply moved by his words. After she left the classroom, Takagi offered her a genuine apology for the first time in 23 years. Though Saruhashi couldn't fully forgive him yet, she accepted his sincerity. The top priority now was to find the truth. The two then went to the teacher's office. Saruhashi directly asked why their year's yearbook was missing from the shelf. The teacher feigned ignorance. When Saruhashi pressed her about the videos, the teacher pretended not to understand. Takagi then spoke up, saying that in his mind, the teacher loved every child, so how could she forget something so important? The teacher fell silent. As Takagi continued to press her emotionally, she still insisted she knew nothing and asked them to leave. Outside, to Takagi's relief, his daughter had realized her mistake and apologized to the boy she had pushed. After leaving school, the teacher played the old dream videos again, her emotions a mix of joy and sorrow. When she saw Saruhashi's segment, she lost control, tears streaming down her face, repeatedly apologizing. After calming down, she called the mysterious person again.
もうやめませんか。私はこれまで自分に嘘をついて見て見ぬふりをしてきました。あなたに言われる通りタイムカプセルを掘り起こしました。でもあの子たちが死ぬなんて思ってもいなかった。
Who told her to wait until they met. After hanging up, the teacher completely broke down. Meanwhile, Hitachi, who had been unemployed for a long time, started working at Koyama Takahiro's company with his help, so they could look out for and protect each other. After Koyama Takahiro left, Hitachi, with doubts, searched the old elementary school's forum. Upon finding it, he opened the message board and was astonished to see that the same person had been posting every year. Hitachi seemed to have an idea and left a message. The moment he refreshed, he received a reply. "You're not the firecracker, are you?" Startled, at the same time, the teacher arrived at the parking lot as agreed. Just as she asked if the other person was there, the headlights of a Wuling car suddenly lit up and pulled up beside her. The door slowly opened, and the teacher, head bowed, got in as the car drove away. Meanwhile, the mysterious person continued to message Hitachi. Saruhashi arrived at work after eating a bowl of Kwanjiao shredded pork noodles, only to find the company in chaos. Overnight, she had been falsely accused of being the perpetrator in a classmate's revenge case. To make matters worse, the editor-in-chief suddenly left for a competitor. A female colleague urged Saruhashi to lay low, as all her colleagues cast suspicious glances at her. This reminded her of her elementary school days when everyone had looked at her with doubt. With a dismissive shrug, Saruhashi turned and walked away. When Takagi, Koyama Takahiro, and Hitachi saw the news, they all looked stunned, except the class monitor, who couldn't hide a smirk. The police investigation only deepened the mystery. While writing a report at a cafe, Saruhashi noticed people staring at her. At first, she ignored it, but then she realized she was trending online flooded with hateful comments. Worse, the photos were taken from behind her, and by the time she noticed, the person was gone. As Saruhashi became the target of public outrage, Koyama Takahiro and Takagi were anxious but helpless. Unaware, Saruhashi arrived home only to be swarmed by paparazzi. The flashing lights and relentless questions triggered her claustrophobia, reviving memories of her childhood bullying. The class monitor called, and the driver rushed Saruhashi away. At the monitor's place, Saruhashi confessed that since being bullied, her only goal was to live strongly and move on. Now, she was being framed as a murderer. The monitor comforted her, saying not to care about others' words. The real struggle came when Saruhashi's company demanded she clarify the report. The monitor agreed she should write it, shocking Saruhashi. If the truth about the bullying came out, the bullies would face online backlash. But the monitor didn't care, saying, if there were no perpetrators, there would be no victims. She encouraged Saruhashi to expose the truth. When Saruhashi agreed, the monitor finally relaxed. Meanwhile, Takagi and the others were discussing how to help Saruhashi when the monitor arrived with her. The shop owner quickly took down the sign and closed the door to receive them. The monitor got straight to the point, stating that the current situation stemmed from the bullying in elementary school. She then signaled Saruhashi to mention the company's request to write a clarification report. Upon learning she planned to reveal the truth, Takagi and the other two looked troubled, as Koyama Takahiro's company and Takagi's family would be affected. Despite the unimaginable consequences, Takagi still supported Saruhashi in speaking the truth, which surprised both Saruhashi and the monitor. Koyama Takahiro and Hitachi also stood up to support her. However, faced with their kindness, Saruhashi suddenly changed her mind and decided not to go public. Saruhashi's carefree attitude made the monitor almost want to slap her, but she forced a smile and kept her emotions in check. The group then decided to face the difficulties together, though the monitor seemed distracted and left early. Days later, the news reports labeling Saruhashi as the real culprit were gradually buried under new scandals. Seeing this, Koyama Takahiro finally relaxed. After he left, Hitachi opened his laptop and accessed the elementary school's old forum message board, where he received a message from the seventh person, who mistook Hitachi for Koyama Takahiro and requested a private meeting. Meanwhile, Saruhashi went to her alma mater to visit teacher Otani, but found out the teacher had disappeared days earlier. Just as she was puzzled, Saruhashi's colleague, who had been tailoring the former editor-in-chief, identified the person in the photos as the informant. At the same time, the monitor found Takagi again. Takagi recalled the past when the class was electing a monitor. Just as everyone was about to vote for Takagi, he recommended the monitor instead. Back then, everyone was too immature to admit their mistakes, but the monitor always stood up for what was right. Only now did he realize how much courage it took to speak the truth. Electing her as monitor was the right decision he had ever made. Moved by Takagi's words, the monitor said she had an appointment with Saruhashi and left after a brief farewell. The monitor had just left when Takagi received a call from Saruhashi's female colleague. By the time he arrived at the small bar, Koyama, Takahiro, and Hitachi were already there. The female colleague had called the three of them to show them a photo. The person who had betrayed Saruhashi was the monitor. It turned out the monitor had been secretly in love with Takagi. Back then, she became furious upon seeing Koyama Takahiro trying to set up Saruhashi and Takagi. After the group left, she aggressively erased the graffiti on the floor. To quell her jealousy, she lured Saruhashi into the equipment room to look for a pencil case. After the group left, she aggressively erased the graffiti on the floor. To quell her jealousy, she lured Saruhashi into the equipment room to look for a pencil case, then locked the door from the outside. When Takagi and the others found out, they started banging on the door to tease her, which was the truth behind Saruhashi's bullying. As Koyama Takahiro was making a phone call, the two had already arrived at a cemetery. When the call went unanswered, the female colleague continued to reveal more. She showed Saruhashi's first exclusive report when she had just started at the company. The subject of the report was a former university football team star who had earned the title of Japanese national team player, but had his career ruined after being exposed for inhaling flour. It seemed the person was the monitor's younger brother. Meanwhile, the monitor revealed her true purpose for being there. She had a younger brother who had committed suicide, and she blamed it all on Saruhashi. It turned out that everything had been the monitor's carefully planned scheme. To avenge her dead brother, she intended to completely destroy Saruhashi. The monitor had previously turned on her phone's voice recorder, deliberately getting close to Takagi and the others to extract information. She had secretly recorded their conversations and handed the recordings over to Saruhashi's newspaper editor for free, once again accomplishing her borrowed knife to kill without anyone noticing. When Takagi and the others realized that day was the Monitor's brother's death anniversary, they sensed something was terribly wrong. As the Monitor arrived at her brother's grave, a heavy downpour began, as if foreshadowing something ominous. Filled with rage at the thought of her brother dying unjustly, the Monitor blamed it all on Saruhashi. "If I had known it would come to this, I should have locked her in there for the rest of her life," she said. With that, she pulled out a hidden knife from her bag, ready to kill Saruhashi with her own hands to avenge her brother. Just as she was about to strike, the trusting faces of Koyama Takahiro, Hitachi, and Takagi flashed through her mind, the image of them unanimously electing her as class monitor, unbiased. Like a bucket of cold water, this sudden kindness doused the flames of revenge. The unexpected benevolence struck her heart, jolting her awake. Vicious cycles never end, she realized. Letting go is the best way to honor my brother. As she sobbed uncontrollably, Takagi silently approached the woman, now collapsed in the rain, holding an umbrella to shield her from the downpour. Once a leader who bore responsibility, she was now someone in need of care. The sound of rain mingled with her sobs. Silence spoke louder than any comfort. Later, back home, Hitachi packed a small knife for protection before leaving the house he'd lived in for decades. At the police station, Saruhashi was told the Monitor would be detained for attempted murder and would face public scrutiny even after release. Then the officer asked a chilling question. 4 people around you have died. So, who was the 5th? Days earlier, the police had received a report of a gruesome murder in a cold storage unit. The victim was the missing teacher. After the homeroom teacher was brutally murdered, the students who heard the news came to attend the funeral. Facing the teacher's grief-stricken daughter and granddaughter, Takagi and others were overwhelmed with mixed emotions. No one had expected that their reunion years later would be in such a heavy and sorrowful occasion. The housewife, Tsuchiya Yuki, and the senior hairstylist, Toyokawa Kengo, had intended to unite the other classmates to help Takagi and others uncover the mastermind behind the murder. But before they could finish speaking, they were firmly rejected by the other students. Just as Tsuchiya Yuki was about to persuade them, she was sharply interrupted by a male classmate. "It's their problem, the ones who bullied others. It has nothing to do with us," he said. His words immediately drew agreement from the female classmates. One woman bluntly said that ever since the yearbook was dug up, tragedies had occurred one after another. She had thought it had nothing to do with her, but now that the teacher had been murdered, she was filled with fear. "What if I get killed next? What if my family is dragged into it?" These words deeply affected Takagi. Despite this, Tsuchiya Yuki and Toyokawa Kengo did not give up. They approached Takagi again, reaffirming their determination to help. But now, influenced by the female classmates' words, Takagi, fearing that they and their families might be implicated, refused them on the spot. Koyama Takahiro, upon hearing Takagi's decision, was dismissive. In an attempt to find the suddenly missing Hitachi, he sneaked into Hitachi's home when the police weren't looking. After searching, he only found an old cell phone. Koyama vaguely remembered that Hitachi had used this very phone to record their happy moments. As he opened it and browsed through the contents, his heart ached. When he saw a video of everyone singing nursery rhyme, he suddenly sensed something was off. Meanwhile, Tsuchiya Yuki, as usual, saw off her husband and son, who were unwilling to exchange more than a few words with her. Gazing at the trash that the father and son ignored at the door, she felt deeply distressed. While cleaning, she accidentally stumbled upon something that held her childhood dreams, and her mind was flooded with memories. Toyokawa Kengo was also having a hard time. Although he was the top hairstylist in the shop, his recent decline in performance had led to frequent scoldings from his boss, even putting him at risk of being fired. Just as he was arranging his hair, he suddenly recalled his own childhood dreams. Filled with helplessness, his phone suddenly rang. Meanwhile, Koyama Takahiro was about to leave when the doorbell at Hitachi's house suddenly rang. Startled, he quickly turned off his phone and hid it. On high alert, he grabbed the katana hanging on the wall and slowly approached the door. To his great surprise, the visitors were Tsuchiya Yuki and Toyokawa Kengo. After learning about Hitachi's disappearance, the two of them, who were struggling in their own lives, became even more determined to join the investigation team. They planned to visit their former classmates one by one to see if they could uncover anything. They even hoped to gather more people to help uncover the truth. With Koyama Takahiro's approval, the three immediately set out to collect their classmates' graduation message books, one by one. Once they were done, they headed straight to the small bar where Takagi often went. Coincidentally, Saruhashi was also there. Using the contact information from the message books, they made calls one by one. Just when everyone was at a loss, Saruhashi made a significant discovery. He found a strange web address in Hitachi's message book. Upon entering the URL, it turned out to be their old school forum. At that very moment, Takagi, who had finally figured things out, arrived. Koyama Takahiro immediately played the video from Hitachi's phone. Although the footage flashed by quickly, Takagi seemed to have seen something. It wasn't until Koyama Takahiro paused the video on the exact frame that Takagi and the others finally understood. The bullies from back then were not 6 people, but 7. Memories flooded back. Since one of the students, Mori, had transferred schools in the middle of 6th grade, his photo was missing from the yearbook. The only remaining clue was the message board on their old class forum. Meanwhile, hiding in a capsule hotel, Hitachi was in contact with a doctor on the forum. This exchange was accidentally witnessed by Saruhashi and the others. Hitachi had arranged to meet the doctor at 5 p.m. at their usual spot. Could the doctor be the 7th person, Mori? Eager to uncover the truth, the group immediately headed to the meeting point, an abandoned company building with its doors tightly locked. Just as they were about to leave in disappointment, Toyokawa Kengo suddenly noticed a light on upstairs. Without hesitation, Takagi led the team in through the underground parking garage. Little did they know, a bloody crisis was waiting for them. At the same time, Hitachi arrived on the upper floor. After looking around, he accidentally saw a figure standing behind the glass. When no one responded after calling out a few times, he frantically pulled out a sharp weapon, vowing to settle the grudge himself. However, upon entering, he found the figure was just a mannequin. Furious, he pushed the mannequin to the ground. Just as Hitachi stormed out of the room, he spotted a figure hiding in the corner and chased after it. Hitachi's shouts were heard by Takagi and the others, who immediately followed the sound. While Hitachi was off guard, the mysterious figure suddenly lunged at him. Despite Hitachi's desperate struggle, the assailant broke free and fled. By the time Saruhashi and the others arrived, Hitachi was severely injured, repeatedly mumbling, "I'm sorry." Saruhashi urged everyone to track down the mysterious figure while she stayed to care for Hitachi. The group split into 4 directions to pursue the assailant. However, no sooner had they left than Hitachi, against Saruhashi's pleas, insisted on settling the matter himself. As Saruhashi chased after him, the mysterious figure suddenly reappeared behind her. Meanwhile, Takagi encountered the assailant in the equipment room. During the chase, he was suddenly reminded of a relay race from their school days. Even with the same effort as back then, the assailant still managed to escape. Exhausted, Koyama Takahiro and the other 2 collapsed to the ground. Back with Saruhashi, she had just spotted Hitachi when she watched in horror as he fell down the stairs. When she approached, she was terrified to find a sharp blade deeply embedded in Hitachi's neck.